the gossip here is 3 major IPOs potentially this year, all over $1 trillion.
The IPO thing is interesting for a number of reasons. One, if this case doesn't go their way, that's obviously going to impact the IPO because it could call for a change in leadership. I mean, so that IPO
Yeah.
gets done, but also just the
Yeah.
revenue model. I mean, is it ready for an IPO?
OpenAI missed revenue targets, and they're showing, was it 13 billion in losses?
Yeah.
So it's not only like, do you want to be for profit or nonprofit, right? But do you want to be consumer? Do you want to be enterprise? They're working on codecs. Like all of those things could work. It's kind of like OpenAI. Like, what do you want to be?
All right, we are back with my friends Suprit and Michael. How are you, fellas? It's been a minute. We haven't done one of these since what, March, February? What is it? A lot's changed.
Yeah. How long has it been?
What are you guys doing? All right. What's new? What's going on in your world, Michael?
We were guys. We were talking about this before we went live on this, but really, what's changed in the past 6 months has been remarkable. I know things, Nick, you and I talked last year about certain things that we could or couldn't do using AI. And now these discussions would be completely different. And then working in a more established company now, kind of out of startup mode, more into a mature company where, technology adoption is going to take a little bit more time. I think we were a little worried back at the end of 2025 about our ability to adopt AI because you would see what was going on with other companies, and you always feel a little bit behind the curve. And I think we were really nervous to start the year, but the adoption rate has changed just remarkably in the last 4 months. We've really gone from almost 0 to 1 over the course of a few months. And I think it's real. I think we've gone from assessing what may or may not work to approving tools, integrating into a process. And we're well into measuring that now. Now, I don't think we know how to measure it totally. I think we know we need to measure it. And what I joked at our board meeting this week was I said, look, we started measuring. And I said, I don't know what good is yet. I said, I do know what bad is. And I said, bad was 0. And when we're tracking metrics, and you guys have probably seen this too, number of lines of code generated by AI, the percentage that was accepted, number of PR requests, code coverage, all these kind of metrics. I told the team, I was like, the only number that's bad is going to be 0. I can't go into a board meeting and say there's 0 adoption here. Whatever we put on the upside, I'm going to say that's a starting point, and we're going to measure it to see whether or not it's good. So,
well, I love these low basis because you get to show 1,000% increase quarter over quarter in AI adoption.
And then obviously the question I got from the board was, this is great. They were really, it was an overwhelmingly positive story, but now we're getting the ROI question. And you guys, I don't know the answer. I don't know the formula. We have a lot of anecdotal case studies of we used AI here, and because of this, we did that thing better, cheaper, faster. Cool. And you could put a number on it, and we've done that. It's great. But now you need to look at the overall AI investment for the business and kind of say, X was invested here, and therefore Y was outputted over here as some type of big formula. I don't know what that answer is, but that's been what we've been working on the last several months.
Interesting. Suprit, what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm going the opposite direction. I'm going back to the startup world. I think that the proliferation of all these tools and these technologies, and now having the experience to kind of look at them and what fits where and go in with eyes open around, the unit economics of it and the security privacy side of it, things like that. We're putting together a new offering in the agentic AI space of healthcare and coming up with something that we think is going to really have an impact on people and how they interact with their data and primary care and things like that. So I'm excited to use a lot of what we've been talking about, and instead of talking about it at a high level, I'm going to try to figure it out and go use it and put it into action. So it's exciting.
That's interesting. I think we'll get into it in the podcast, but there's been this marked shift, and I think everyone's been looking at Anthropic because of this. But going from consumer to enterprise, and enterprise now with agentic becoming so dominant and I wouldn't say safer, but more accessible for all enterprises, mid or large. Now they're able to actually create these tools. I had a buddy the other day. I was at one of these CEO roundtables. It was EO, and but one of the CEOs like time to sell Salesforce short because I had a buddy. He just made his own CRM in one day. I was like, that's interesting. I don't think I would sell Mark Benioff short,
Yeah.
but there is this idea of now we're creating these ecosystems where what Salesforce calls headless, where now the UI is less important, but the data and the infrastructure and the environment that's safe to create these agents, to deploy these agents is safer. So anyway, we'll get into it. Okay, but anyway, so the gossip for this one, we may hope we don't get too boring and techie in this one, but like the gossip here is 3 major IPOs potentially this year, all over $1 trillion. Okay, so like Saudi Aramco was the largest IPO we've ever had. I think that was like 30 billion. Now we're talking a trillion. SpaceX AI wants to IPO later this year at a 1.5 trillion. OpenAI is already on record for 1 trillion, and they want to do that somewhere in June. We'll get into that. And the last one would be Anthropic, also planning for end of the year. May not quite reach the 1 trillion mark, but is the hottest one out there right now. So where do we want to go with this? I'm going to flip it over to you, Suprit. Which one do you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's funny because they're all intertwined, and I feel like they're all SpaceX has its hands in all of it, right? It's kind of at the core. But I think
Oh,
the
no,
most
you mean
interesting
Elon's hovering around all these
Elon's world,
stories.
yeah. But I think the interesting thing really is the current court case, right, between Elon and OpenAI with Altman and Brockman and crew because of the implications there across the entire market. But I think it's easy to take this case for made for TV drama or entertainment, especially the way, the first few days kind of panned out with Elon on the stand and some of his great comments and, what he does and what he brings to the table. But, it's a really interesting case, right? It's a suit about whether OpenAI leadership, Altman, Brockman, others, if they really betrayed their initial mission of being a nonprofit just to get a $45 million donation from Elon Musk, right? And I mean, that's a lot of money. And he obviously feels betrayed by that. And he had a certain vision and mission for what that was supposed to be. And his contention is that they reneged on that. They went back on it and they had planned for a while to go from nonprofit to for profit. Um, and so for OpenAI, they need to prove that it was a legitimate transition. It wasn't just, hey, we said this to get the donation. Um, and so I think that, besides that as the framing of what's going on, you also have a trial that has a little bit of everything. It has a text message, chain 2 days before trial was supposed to begin from Elon to
Yeah.
Brockman about, hey, let's settle this. You don't want to be the most hated man in America. You have a diary
The
excerpts of a
diary
diary that were
blew
leaked.
me away. The diary was crazy.
You have a
You're writing
diary.
this stuff down, are you?
Yeah, I mean, basically a diary entry that confirms, right, that there was something going on behind the scenes, and now it's being claimed as a stream of consciousness, just like venting into a notebook, or maybe a note to execs out there to not do that when you're going through a transition. You have this is definitely not something we want to get into, but you have some romantic entanglements with
Yeah.
OpenAI board members,
A
right?
woman with 4 of Elon's children on the stand
Yeah,
against Elon.
yeah. And then you have what I think is really interesting that I don't know we're talking enough about is Elon owns X. And on X, if you look at the posts on X about this trial and, referring to Sam Altman as scam and the influence that a social media platform has on things like jury selection and public perception. And
Mm.
it's really impactful, right? I mean, I think the judge admonished him early about posting too much about it, but that's just him posting about it. I mean, the entire platform, if you go on X and it's hard to go without seeing the word scam somewhere on there recently over the last couple of weeks, right? So it's definitely been impactful. So I think you have all of this just kind of building, and the ramifications are huge, right? If OpenAI wins or if Musk wins, what that would do from an economic perspective. If Musk wins, then is OpenAI's IPO tanked? Is their ability to afford compute that they need tanked because he's going to try to claw back what $100 billion, 150 billion, I forget what it is, but is that is that off? Is Microsoft in trouble? Right? I mean, that's something that they've kind of floated under the radar, but how does that impact it? Does it impact nonprofits? So, yeah, no, I kind of went long on that, but like it's just so far reaching, right? Where this could go, if depending on who wins.
We'll take it from the end there with the Microsoft side of it. There's that nuance too with the Microsoft deal around AGI,
Hmm.
around how if OpenAI ever achieved AGI, then it was going to sever the relationship with Microsoft. And the thought process behind that was, we're on a mission to do good. We're going to be open. And if we achieve something super powerful like AGI, we're going to sever our relationship with the for profit Microsoft because we don't want them to have access to this essentially a nuclear weapon. I mean, that's how they're thinking about it, right? This is this huge, could be a power for good, it could be a power for evil if we unlock AGI. So that was like in the deal. And then as they both started making a lot of money, they just kind of waved that away. They're like, screw it. That's not in there anymore. And so that's just one area of how they've deviated from this mission of trying to be open. The whole idea was there'd be a board that would set the standards and the safety and then kind of control any access to how this would. And you can follow it from Elon's initial investment all the way to severing the Microsoft AIG thing and just kind of say, yeah, I agree with Elon. Like clearly they were either duplicitous on how they approach this, and maybe now they are on this for-profit journey. Clearly it was kind of, whether you want to call it scammy or you want to call it, a little, misleading. But the question is, was it illegal?
Right.
And then now you have a court case to say like, look, like they may have promised you that, Elon, or that may be what you said. Maybe you had a handshake on it, but sure, they took a nonprofit to be for profit.
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
legal? Or was that just shitty? Like, I don't know.
It's tricky, right? And his investment, and I think he said this in one of the email exchanges that I was reading, was, the initial investment, that 45 million or so that he gave them was for the nonprofit. And then he started to get the feeling of, hey, I'm not funding your startup. That's not what this money was for. Like he specifically, I think, said that. And it's a valid point, right? I mean, it depending on the mission and what had been sold to him, and he feels like that's not what I was told. And now not only is this thing not a nonprofit, but you're going off in these other directions. You're having relationships with Microsoft. You're building your models. He's got XAI, he's got Grok, he's got this world. Everybody's starting to compete with each other, and he basically did he just fund his biggest competitor? I mean, in the end, like it's starting to all these paths are starting to cross.
Yeah, I have to go back. I mean, I think to set the stage just a little bit, OpenAI was founded as a 501c3 in 2015. And then in 2019, um, they did a capped profit hybrid where there's OpenAI LLP, but is completely governed by the 501 OpenAI Corp. OpenAI Inc., the 501c3, is completely governing this for-profit subsidiary, because I think everyone knew we got to take money from Microsoft or somewhere, because this compute capex is way more than a nonprofit's ever going to have, right? Okay, so we kind of get that. But then the board fired Sam. And Microsoft's like, no more checks until Sam comes back. And then we have this PBC conversion. The for-profit became OpenAI Group and is kind of giving the middle finger to the board. And now we have this more like now 2026 in April. This is the real shift. We have a Delaware Public Benefit Corporation. And I'm just going to quote Claude here because I don't really know the whole things, but a move that formally strips the OpenAI nonprofit, which is now a foundation, of its controlling stake and removes capped profit mechanism, which used to be 100x only the investors could get, The nonprofit doesn't disappear, but becomes a minority stakeholder with a non-voting interest in the new PBC. That's all seems
It really
shady,
does.
but I understand the reality of it. You're not going to have this big AI company without it.
Well, and also, as we know, and we're going to dive into this too, but the costs of these models and running things, and not just on the compute side, but also on attracting the right talent and people to bring in. I mean, we all know it's not just salary, right? People want a piece of the pie. They want equity. They want something that'll pay off later. And you know, it's something that they had to wrestle with, and you have to set things up in a certain way to be able to deliver on that and get the talent you want as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I want to get into is OpenAI missed revenue targets, and they're showing, was it 13 billion in losses?
Yeah.
Um, 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 I forget. Is that a year? It must be a year. That's a huge number, right? And so the CFO, who no longer reports to Sam, is now saying we're not quite, one, we can't do reporting, and two, we can't keep up. The revenue's not growing fast enough to keep up with the capex we're forecasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a combination of things. We might have talked about it on the last pod, but you have this kind of first mover advantage that OpenAI had, where it was like 2022, where it was like that aha moment, like this is amazing, and everybody rushed to this brand new thing that nobody else really offered. And you're kind of first to market, and it was cool. Did we use the MySpace Facebook example?
Yeah,
I
I
don't know if
think
we
we
talked
did,
about
but
that.
you want to refresh everybody.
Yeah, but it was kind of like, yeah, you were first, man. That was great, right? But then you're going to have these fast followers that come in. And when you think about the consumer side of it, which is how everybody experienced AI first,
Mm.
you downloaded it, you used it, and it was amazing for a year or two. And then Google catches up, and Gemini's baked into everything you're already doing in Google. It's right there. Facebook has their own AI built into Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. Like that's all there, kind of free. Sure, you can pay for a tier up if you want to do some stuff. Grok came in and offered something free and embedded it into Twitter. I mean, so you could kind of fact check articles, and that was all free. And of course, there was a paid tier if you wanted to, but there was still this kind of race to the bottom on the free tier, and the free tier kept getting better and better and better. From a consumer standpoint, they all work great. Like they don't hallucinate as much as they used to. You still have to be on top of it, but they're getting better. And then Google, Facebook, Grok, they're offering it for free. And like, what do you do if you're OpenAI? They bombed on Sora. Again, kind of first to market when Sora came out, I was like, holy crap. And then, Gemini comes out with nano bananas, and then you had Grok, Imagine. So all these other things started to also offer that functionality, and you had this race to the bottom. Meanwhile, Anthropic going enterprise, Cursor on top of that, getting these very large deals, token costs, compute costs going to the enterprise where they're bringing in huge amounts of revenue, and you have OpenAI maybe stuck a little bit in between, kind of MySpacey. I don't know how they go IPO or not, but and they're messy. We just talked about the corporate structure being drama, messy, weird, and then revenue's down too. So it's an odd story.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about like ChatGPT? So they missed. So they want to be at 1 billion active users, and they totally whiffed on that. I think they had a drop of something. What was it? Gosh, I'm blanking on it. Do you guys remember the drop? I think it was like a 30% drop. Everyone was running to Claude and Gemini.
Yeah.
Because Gemini now has like close to 800 million something active users themselves. So like the consumer market just got really shrunk. What OpenAI is saying, not to worry. The free tier is going to be supplemented revenue wise by ads.
Ads. Yeah.
There's that. Yeah.
I don't think that's going to work in the world of AI where everything is about trust. I think if I'm starting to see ads or I feel like I'm getting manipulated, I could be totally wrong. Everyone might have been saying that about search. But I'm in
They
this
said about
world.
Facebook. I remember when Facebook monetized the
Maybe.
newsfeed, everybody said that too, and then everybody got comfortable with that. So that's a fair point.
Yeah, maybe it is a fair point. Maybe I'm just stuck in like Well, if I'm
I
really
think it's a
if
fair
this is
point. I
really
don't
my
agree with it.
confidant.
I think it's a problem. I think other people have overcome it, but for AI, to me, it hits me as the wrong monetization approach. I mean, maybe, but
Well,
I don't know.
I think the other thing to think about is, like you said, Michael, when we first started, it was a very individual thing, right? It was users, like people would use it to do something. As you've shifted to enterprise and as you've shifted to these companies that are now starting to spend a lot of money on tokens and a lot of money on things they want to do at an enterprise level, it seems like Anthropic and Claude seem to have kind of taken over that market, right? Where there's potentially more revenue upside. There's stickiness there with coders and with others. And once you get in with the coders and the development environments, then you can, kind of drive people to your base model and then your big, So I think that the IPO thing is interesting for a number of reasons. One, if this case doesn't go their way, that's obviously going to impact the IPO because it could call for a change in leadership. I mean, so that IPO
Yeah.
gets done, but also just
Yeah.
the revenue model. I mean, is it ready for an IPO?
And they're kind of squeezed because not only do you have, like we talked about, like a Google or Meta offering low cost free options, but you have cheaper options too coming out of China, which fill that role as well. So it's kind of like OpenAI, like, what do you want to be?
Yeah.
So it's not only like, do you want to be for profit or nonprofit, right? But do you want to be consumer? Do you want to be enterprise? They're working on codecs. Like all of those things could work, but they're getting pulled a little.
They are.
Like,
Yeah.
they're kind of getting attacked on all sides. And I think that's what happens when you're first mover, right? They kind of carved out this lane and it was kind of generic. And then you get, is it low cost? Is it DeepSeek? Is it free because it's embedded in an ecosystem like Google? Or is it hardcore enterprise with coders and we're trying to kind of rebuild how we build software? OpenAI is kind of like in the middle.
And they seem to
Yeah.
not be making a clear path, right? Like there's been rumors about them developing their own hardware, like a phone, things like that. I mean, other companies
Oh
have
yeah,
gone down that road and it hasn't worked out well for them.
John
But
Ivey, man, he's gonna save it.
I think
right.
it's very interesting because they came out first, so they had a little bit of insight into. All right, the initial question was like, "Hey, would people pay for this?" Okay, we've gotten to a point where we think people will pay for it, and they are, but we don't really know the sensitivity. Like if you go from $20 to $25 or $8 to $20, like I think there's still some. We're not clear on what would drive somebody away from using that or just go to the free version. But to your point, I think is really interesting. Others like Google, if you've got it embedded into your ecosystem as it is, and there's no additional cost, like I'm not having another recurring charge, even though I'm paying for it in some way, I don't really think I'm paying for it, right? And so is that
Yeah.
the better avenue that people are shifting, towards?
What you can do with, Google's a prime example. Grok is another good example where if you're paying for a service, right? Like, so Google's an easy one, right? You may be paying for extra space on your Google Drive. You may be paying for YouTube. You may be paying for YouTube TV. You have Google Play credits. Maybe you're in the App Store. But like Google has monetized you in so many different ways that it's very easy for them in any of those existing things that you're already buying from Google to tack in you get access to Gemini Pro.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
in a bundle.
And they
Here's
can
just like
they can
it's like
notch
your
it up
insurance.
just a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, if you're evaluating those tiers of do I want to be in like whatever subscription model for any type of Google service, and they're like, yeah, I can move you from here to here by charging you an extra $5 a month because I gave you premium or pro Gemini.
Yeah.
It's so easy to nudge. Like I've resisted Google Drive space because like I don't want to pay Google extra space. But if they were like, well, you know what? If you get Gemini Pro, we're going to solve that problem for you too. And you're like, okay, it's easy. Grok's the same thing. People pay for Twitter.
Mm.
And can I pay you into another tier by giving away, Grok Pro or Super Grok or whatever it is,
Or Starlink.
or Starlink? Yeah. You're already paying for Starlink. Guess what? For $5 more a month, you get Grok Pro. Or you can monetize the AI so much more easily than what
Yeah,
OpenAI has
infrastructure.
access.
or it's part of your Tesla car payment. I mean, there's plenty of
Oh,
places
God,
where you
yeah.
can integrate it,
I didn't
right?
even think of that one. That's
Like
crazy.
it.
All
They
right, we could
and
talk about this one forever, but Michael, you brought up Codex. I thought that was really good. So ChatGPT wants to get Codex. They want to get into this commercial market so bad because they see what Claude is doing. But then we had like a little fly in the ointment. I know you were really near and dear to this one, but now SpaceX AI bought Cursor. What does that mean for us now? That is that now a new entrant that we should be watching out for?
Well, if you go through the details of that deal, it's an option to buy. And to me, it really seems like it's a win-win. It's an expensive win-win, because it's still the way it works is they're essentially getting Cursor's essentially getting $10 billion so that they can get access to more compute, through
Is
XAI.
10 billion to rent the service, 60 billion to buy it, right?
Right. And if Elon were to pay 60 billion for Cursor, it's a very high valuation.
Mhm.
Uh, Certainly they weren't valued that much last year. This year, it's probably a fraction of that. So
I
the
think it was
question is, in
29
a
billion their
year,
last raise. Yeah.
yeah, would they be worth 60 billion? Right. So it's obviously a premium. But what Elon gets out of it is he gets to try it. They get to see, like, where's the power? Is it because of what Cursor has in terms of coding data and patterns that are coming from developers, or is it the underlying compute? And if it's the underlying compute, great, they get to learn. And if it's not, Elon has an exit on it where he doesn't have to get his hands dirty. So it costs him $10 billion to try. Cursor needs it because they're in a bind. They're in a bind on compute. That's not
Mhm.
what they, and they're going to have to hitch their wagon to somebody at some point. And Elon swooped in with a big premium, whether it's $10 billion as an option or 60 to buy, um, to secure that for a year. And now Elon doesn't have to worry about it for a year. Cursor's good on compute for a year. So I do think it's kind of a win-win for everybody. It's an expensive win-win, but Elon getting another hook and something else. It's kind of crazy.
Spree, you got any opinions on this one?
I mean, so many. But I think it's, the 10 billion versus 60 billion thing is interesting because 60 billion does sound like a lot. It is a lot, obviously. But the timing of it is potentially post SpaceX IPO, right? Where the financing of that deal and the terms and things like that can be a little bit more, it would be different than, Elon and XAI buying it right now. So I think that he certainly thought through that. I think that what you're seeing is, you have different layers in this market. You have the model layer, which is like, the open AIs and the Anthropics and people that, and even Google and XAI that have built their models. Then you have that almost like that coding layer, like Claude Code and Codex and Cursor and Replit, and all these folks that have really stickiness with developers and things like that. And then of course you have the compute layer. And what you're starting to see is it's not as if there's clean verticals. You're starting to see intermingling between these, and you might own a model but then pay a competitor for their compute resources, and you're starting to see these patterns emerge with that. And the other underlying thing with the Cursor deal obviously is um XAI's model is plummeted in usage, right? Nobody's using it anymore. I think there was like an article that said it said it like plummeted 90%. So
Yeah.
he's got to find a way to drive Cursor through there, right? And boost that model and get it more competitive with the other models that are out there. So I think there's a lot of storylines here that are going to have ramifications.
Which is why developers like Cursor, is because
Mhm.
it's model agnostic.
Exactly.
We've experimented obviously with Claude Code, but the dev team likes Cursor because they can change the model out. And
Yeah.
depending on what you're trying to do, the different models are going to be better. You're not baked into an ecosystem, which if XAI were to acquire Cursor, that's going to give them a question of, do you stay model independent? That
Yep.
creates a very weird thing for Elon if they were to move forward with this. And I think that's kind of, that might be a high class problem to have. If
Mhm.
everything over the next year pans out and Cursor does become a viable acquisition target for XAI, trying to figure out like whether to keep it model independent or do you force everybody into XAI? Like that that's a good problem to solve. That means you've got something you want to buy, you just don't know how to integrate it properly. I mean, that's as opposed to I don't want to buy this, I don't have to worry about it. So I think that's a discussion that they're going to look forward to having, and I think they're not going to know the answer to what to do until this year is up
But I
on
think
whether or not
either
they.
way, SpaceX wins, right? Because if people
100%.
go to Cursor and they say, all right, we're going to make it only for XAI and we're going to use Grok, whatever it is, then they win that way. But if they leave it neutral and people who use Cursor call out to Claude, right, for their model, well, Claude had just signed a deal with SpaceX
Oh
to
my
use
gosh,
its
yeah. We're
computing
gonna get into
power
that one
Tennessee.
too.
So it's like either way, it all rolls up to the same person.
And all of this going back to the earlier discussion around the IPO stuff, and we were talking about all these companies that are going to go IPO, and the funkiness around the OpenAI IPO, which we talked through. Then you look at the SpaceX IPO, and it just seems to me like everything in here is like tons of options.
Yeah.
Like it's tangible. I mean, obviously with SpaceX, I mean, this is hard tech. These are things that
Yes.
people can't just stop using Falcon 9 rockets. Like that's not going to happen, right? So that's a thing. And then Starlink is a major thing, not just from a consumer side, but from governmental defense. There's so much stuff going on there. This whole big bet. Now, if you're going to IPO, it's not about what revenue is going to look like next year. It's going to be like, what is the valuation of this company 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah,
And you
what's
put
the moat?
together
Yeah.
What's the
what
moat?
Yeah.
the moat for SpaceX is gigantic. And there's this stretch goal or this kind of, ultimate idea of putting the compute in space where you go, that doesn't seem possible. And well, kind of, it could be. And if you're doing an IPO, it doesn't have to be viable next year, but is it viable in 10 years? Probably. Like if you're looking at an IPO story compared to the OpenAI story where we're talking about people bickering about, is it a public company or a nonprofit? Or is it a charitable company? Like the exchange, the scandal, the drama. To me, that's just like so minor and immature compared to what we were talking about on a SpaceX IPO, which is just meaty and heavy and real and all kinds of upside.
Yeah.
Well, the one brilliant thing about Elon is this. There's 64 billion of data center projects that have been blocked or delayed. So basically half of all data center projects are going to be canceled, right? And so I can put this link in the show notes, but like to me that is shocking. And so what the brilliance of Elon was Colossus 1 and Colossus 2, both in Tennessee. Okay, Tennessee's not known for renewable energy or having any energy whatsoever, right? So it's natural gas, and he skirted the laws around that. But basically, Colossus 1 has 230,000 GPUs and has 300 megawatts of power. He essentially signed a deal with Anthropic to give him that because like I'm not going to use it because I've already admitted Grok was built wrong, was built incorrectly the first time around. But now he buys Cursor, and he has Colossus 2, and he's going to rebuild Grok in some iteration, and now he has coding talent. He probably paid the premium because he also got the scientists associated with that deal. And in Colossus 2, he has 1 gigawatt of power, over 1 million GPUs. I mean, it's 4 times larger than Colossus 1. And so he's sitting here, and then, okay, now he's going to put 1 million satellites into space that run on solar power, and he's going to open up the space vacuum and cool them. He solved the 2 biggest problems for all GPU power because the compute. Go ahead, Mike. What are you going to say? Something?
With the space stuff, you don't have to even be able to prove that you can do it. You just have a viable answer to all these data centers getting delayed or shut down. So if you're gonna be in this space, which all these companies are, and we've talked about the potential for IPOs, and you're trying to raise funds or do an IPO, that question, Nick, that you just showed the map of is, okay, what's your answer to this?
Yes.
And if your answer is, I I own a space fleet and I already have compute in a network already with 10,000 satellites in space, and I'm just going to do it up there. Like, okay, great answer. Like, I'll go do it, but that's an answer. What do these other folks say? I'm gonna lobby Congress, or I'm gonna lobby Tennessee or California to open up more data center projects. Like, if that's your answer, Elon is like, screw it, I'll just do it in space. Like, which one sounds better to you?
Or are you going to see a wave of M&A activity in this space where people start buying, space technology companies, or they
Yeah.
start buying companies like, if he's buying Cursor, is somebody going to come in and buy, their competitors, and you start aligning everything, and you're are the next 12 months just going to be a wave of M&A, especially with deep pockets like Google has and others. Like, is that the path we're going down to, like consolidating everything from the user experience to where it's computed? I mean, I think that you could make an argument for that as well.
And you have governmental pressure too, right? So there's, I think I read this somewhere, but there's 60 gigawatts of compute power being used in the US. China will reach 40 gigawatts. They caught up so
Quickly.
fast. And you think they're going to have NIMBY issues, or what we got, 40 plus action groups or special interest groups, protest. They're not going to have that. They're not going to have that. So where do you go if you can't build it in our backyard? Well, 1 million satellites seems reasonable,
Yeah.
and shoot the lasers down. And I don't know what that does for my hair. I don't know what it does for my health to have lasers firing all around, but like, I don't, that's interesting to me. And the other really interesting stat I wanted to come out here with was, I think it was, okay, so OpenAI has committed compute spend of 50 billion for 2026, which they can't, one, they won't be able to pay for it unless they raise money, which they will. But two, they won't get it approved and won't get built. And they have a total capex commitments of half a trillion. Okay, so that's OpenAI. Anthropic has 10 to 15 billion. They already have 2 times more compute in, like, now, and then that's probably counting the Colossus deal. And they have a 300 billion total commit. I think you just need to put in perspective here, and the one that's not going to be struggling in this is Google.
Google. Yeah.
They have a 700 billion commit. You think they're going to sweat getting their projects done? They got their own chips. They have their own infrastructure. They're going to turn things on and off. And there's, like, we're talking $30 billion companies here. I think both OpenAI and ChatGPT, or OpenAI and Anthropic, both will hit around 30 billion. That's great.
Yeah.
What's Google? I think, what are they up to? Let's see. I can pull that up real quick. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking here. It's like
Trillion.
40 billion a quarter.
Yeah, it's well, and Google. I mean, it's funny to me that when you reflect back on it, everybody was saying, "Oh, they were asleep at the wheel" when the OpenAI, ChatGPT came out, and man, they issued that code red, I think, internally, where they started releasing products right quicker than they traditionally did. But not only did they catch up, but they have the thing that Claude doesn't have, that Chat doesn't have, that nobody really has, which is they are woven into our personal and work lives, right? Like,
Yes.
their
Oh, I'm
SMB.
sorry. Let's get it wrong. They're 450 billion a year in revenue.
You just missed one. I mean,
Holy crap. And they're growing 15% a year. They're already
yeah,
getting rewarded,
yeah.
right?
And I mean, I think that they have the flexibility on price, on structures, on tiers, on all of this stuff to continue to do that. But it seems like these conversations, not just ours, but even when you're talking to industry folks, everything starts coming back to Google, because they do have that capacity and ability.
They have the capacity and they have the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And to me, we talked about this on one of the other pods where, that is kind of a killer feature when you want to pay for something. You got the ecosystem, and then nudge me up into a premium tier. Google has a reason to do that. We talked about that before, but that consumer side of it, man, it's baked. Like, that's a no-brainer. Now, some companies like our company, I mean, we're on G Suite, right? So, I mean, we're a Google company, and lots of companies are, obviously. But most enterprises aren't. right? They're going to be Microsoft, and which is a whole other story. We could talk about what the heck Microsoft's doing, but Google's dominance in the ecosystem and on the consumer side and on the compute side, the infrastructure side is like well
Yeah.
entrenched.
And they have hardware. I mean, that's the other thing.
And they have
And hardware.
hardware, and
Right.
they
So
compete with
that's a
Snowflake
great
and
point.
Databricks, and, like, they have AI, processing, so
Well, Supri, that's a really good going back to the hardware thing with, OpenAI trying to figure out what do you want to be,
Yeah.
right? Are you consumer? Are you enterprise? Do you want to get into hardware? Like, what's it going to? Google's like, yeah, we can do hardware. We kind of have a lot of hardware out there.
Yeah.
They know wearables. How they acquired Fitbit many years ago.
Mhm.
They got Google Watches. They got all kinds of stuff where if they wanted to do, if AI devices became a category, whether it's a new version of a phone, which people are still trying to figure out what's beyond a phone. Nobody's figured out yet. They already have watches. Wearables
Yeah.
are easy.
And they're in
So
Apple devices too. Like Gemini's
they're in
power
Apple
that. So,
devices.
yeah.
So if somebody figures out the new medium for AI as some type of a device, whether it's a pin or a necklace, if you've seen some glasses, right? Whatever it might be, whoever unlocks what that thing is, whoever has the iPhone moment where Steve Jobs goes, this is different, right? And he's like, and everybody goes, wow. And it took a few years for iPhone to become a thing, but there was an iPhone moment that changed, and then everybody got on board. Okay, smartphones is a thing, right? You had flip phones, you had Blackberries, and then smartphones became doable because Apple unlocked how to do it. If somebody unlocks a wearable or a new medium for AI, it might not be Google that unlocks it, but Google can be there in a second
Yeah.
to do it. They've got it all locked down.
Yeah.
I think
They have the
they're
Well, there's
dominant.
another point.
It's
Well,
been
there's
it's
another
easy.
point there. It's just that the financial cost of capital. Google is a public company and is able to raise money on the public markets at what? 5%? Almost. What's the risk-free rate these days? I don't know what it is. It's gone. Maybe it's down a little bit, but whereas if you have to raise money, I think that's why Anthropic, OpenAI want to get public so fast because they're borrowing capital at like a 20% cost of capital.
Yeah.
Right? They got investor hurdles to return, and like that's just going to be impossible to raise money. So like, who can do a hardware deal? Who can make their own TPUs or GPUs? Only Google.
Yeah.
Only Google. All right, so we kind of brushed over this, but I do want to talk about the story in our last 14 minutes here. The Anthropic deal. So Elon used to call Dario and Anthropic misanthropic, but now they're buddies again. He says, hey, I got with those scientists. They seem like really great guys, and they're really concerned about AI safety. I'm just going to give them my spare capacity, and it's only going to cost them $5 billion. That's estimated. No one really knows the terms of the deal, but pretty brilliant on Elon and a great move by Dario. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So he's immediately taking advantage of the OpenAI situation, gets into bed with Elon, and he immediately gets compute. This will be 10% uplift in compute that no one else is able to get immediately. I think this is brilliant. I don't know if you guys had an opinion on this, but I thought this was an amazing deal that just happened.
Well, and Claude and Anthropic are then able to see through their commitments to their users, which is, hey, we're going to stop throttling usage during peak times. We're going to make different things available at the pro and, the different levels. Like they're able to see through these, that people were complaining about this, right? I mean, there was serious complaints going on about how I have limited usage between 8 and 5 p.m. Eastern. And now you opened it up and you've addressed that.
Well, that whole dilemma right there, when we think about the IPOs and people want to draw the .com parallels, where like, are we in a bubble or are we not? Like, okay, that's the topic for another pod. But that right there is you have a supply problem, not a demand problem. And when you're like, I could grow faster, but the demand is like, I can't accommodate it. It's a hell of a good problem to have. And then you have to make a deal, however you have to make a deal to do it. And I think that makes, enemies friends and could make other friends enemies. And
Yeah.
it's a brilliant
That's
deal.
the core difference between Anthropic and OpenAI right now is that Anthropic, now that they have the compute, but they can justify high capex for buying more compute. because they got the revenue growth to show
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And again, if they have that demand problem, I know there was a lot of talk about ChatGPT 5.5 was better than the last release of OpenAI because they pulled the was it Mythos back,
Mm,
the hack so they had, like, and the throttling issue, but this solves a lot of
it
that.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Well,
did the thing that companies should do. They listened to their customer base. I mean, it was a problem, right? And people were really I mean, what it shows is that like you said, the demand is there. People want to use it, and now you've taken that obstacle out of the way, and now you're going to have even more usage.
Yeah, and we didn't even really talk about the Mythos stuff, that
Yeah,
there
we
was
could
that from a month or 2 ago, but the users appreciate the better models, where you guys have probably seen this. I know when I talk to my team, there's yeah, no, I think Opus is better than Sonnet,
mm,
right? Like, people can see it, right? So now as you go into these various tiers for the type of work that people wanna get done, when it starts to get outside of generative, when it's more than just asking questions or formatting an email, you start to get into, okay, I'm going to assemble complex ideas. I'm going to generate, whether it's generating code or whether you're generating, presentations or screen designs or whatever it is. My people tell me, and I see this too, that I would rather use like Opus rather than Sonnet because I can see that it works better. Now it's more
mhm.
expensive, and then you go, is there a tier on top of that, which is Mythos or whatever? And like, how good is that? We don't know. We haven't used it yet. But was there a lot of like doom and fear mongering when that came out? Or is it just this thing is going to find a lot of bugs and a lot of code? And hey, big companies, you need to use this because if you don't, it's going to expose a lot of vulnerabilities really quickly. So we're going to do you a solid and give it to you ahead of time. I don't know what that was
The
all about.
Mythos thing was interesting because someone the cybersecurity AI got hacked. Someone got a copy and they were using it to find vulnerabilities everywhere, where the idea of it was, to find these vulnerabilities, give it to the 1,000 really good white hat hackers out there and start hardening security. But that's not exactly what happened. GPT 5.5 Cyber, I guess, came out and they were able to do the same thing. But that bodes really well for safety, coming out and using these tools correctly. But to your other point, just on the compute, I've heard a number of these researchers to say, like, these models are gonna get 10x better, so we're gonna use less compute. I think
Well,
that's really
yeah.
interesting because the idea is, like, my dad's using ChatGPT to, "What's the weather today?" There are all of these wasted tokens that are being used, and if we can, like, somehow cache those or put them into different models or multiple models, I guess is now the new thing that's gonna be happening, these smaller models to handle
Yeah,
these one-off, these high traffic,
even locally,
very
right?
expensive
I
tokens.
mean, I think that caching is spot on. I was talking about this with somebody recently about, if you look at enterprise, are people asking the same question over and over? Are they hitting the same thing over and over? And can you, instead of using up your tokens on basic questions, deploy some of this locally and cache? And can you do that? And is somebody going to attack that next? Or I mean, maybe they're already attacking it, aware of it, but it certainly hasn't gained massive popularity or usage yet. But the costs are skyrocketing, and you have to find solutions for that.
Well, that whole, I guess maybe you could say, kind of diminishing returns on the improvements in the models. Like right now, like we were just saying, each model is noticeably better. There's probably a higher willingness to pay because of that. People kind of get that. But maybe there's a parallel here between like what happened with music, where they released, you had CDs, right? Good
Mhm,
audio quality, good fidelity. But then they released MP3s, which were just
mhm,
cheaper and smaller, and they didn't sound as good.
mhm,
But people are like, "Yeah, but I can download it, I can stream it better." Like, I don't care, I don't need that. I'm not listening at a home stereo. I'm putting earbuds in it, it's fine, right? An MP3 was fine. And I don't care how much better you make the audio, still, like, I don't need it. So I don't
mhm,
know if these models are gonna get to a point where it's like, "Hey, we're at this Mythos level," and it's like, that's great if you're some security hacker, right? And that you need to harden your systems, or we're doing, cutting edge scientific research, or we're scaling, like, it, does it keep going like this? I don't know. Like, does that compute cost? Can you follow it up like Moore's law? Like, does it really keep going that way, or does it just go, hey, that's enough, and it just plateaus? I don't know.
I
I
don't
I
know.
have no clue. I mean, yeah, I just the idea that, we can't keep wasting our energy infrastructure
Yeah,
at this level, we'll run out of
we'll run it. Yeah,
resources. Something's gotta give there. I just, but I guess I would come back to the point, like, on this caching thing, like, who's gonna be really good at that? Google.
yeah,
Google, like, I'm gonna go into this model, and it's gonna give me a SERP instead of a,
yeah,
"Here's a screenshot of Weather Channel. Stop wasting my tokens, idiot.
yeah, yeah.
That's a really good.
Stop saying please and thank you." That really kills
It
my
can, exactly. That's
Well, that's a good place to end. Any updates? Where can people find you? Anything fun going on? Anything you guys wanna pitch?
no. I mean,
No
I
ads.
think
No ads, please. This is all organic earned media here, so
Um, no, like I said, I think we'll get into it more on future pods. Looking forward to it. But I think, the agentic side and really fitting that into the healthcare ecosystem is what I'm looking at and working on. And I look forward to keeping both of you guys posted on that.
Yeah.
that
Well,
that is
Suprit and I are
amazing. The
both in.
open claw moment really set this all off to me. I don't know, but go ahead, Michael.
Well, I was going to say, Suprit and I are both in healthcare, and I want to talk to you afterwards. I want to hear what you're building, see if there's some ways to partner or kind of collaborate. I'd love to learn how you guys are approaching primary care in particular. I know you mentioned that. So either way, lots of fun stuff going on. I think it's going to be a fun summer, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Take it easy. Bye.
So.